Does bigger mean better? Does maxing out every laptop component mean better? Does paying upwards of $4,000 mean better gaming performance? That's what we'll find out today as I'll take a close look at the MSI Titan GT77. Let's head straight to the performance. This has the Intel Core i9-13980HX processor paired with a powerful RTX 4090 with a 175 watts maximum TGP. So pretty much the best match you can get. Now, it gets better. Our spec comes with 64GB of RAM and two 2TB SSDs with a total of 4TB of sheer storage. But this laptop ain't like any other since 4 slots of RAM are available here. Again, the spec we have here came with two 32GB sticks summing up to 64GB, which means you can still slap on 2 sticks to reach up to 128GB of RAM. But if you do so, I'm afraid that the laptop will limit the speed down to 4000 MHz instead of 5600. In fact, some people even saw speeds as low as 3600, which is such a shame. On a better note though, the SSD setups are some of the best I've ever seen in a laptop. This can take up to 3 SSDs, which, granted, is still a step down to last year's 4. But still, you can theoretically get up to 24TB of storage in this relatively small computer. I say relatively because just look at this thing. It's pretty darn huge for a laptop, but you won't expect it to have 24TB, would ya? We're barely halfway through the video. But if you're thinking about buying this laptop right now, you may scan this QR code or scroll down to the description box below for the link. Also, don't forget to subscribe. We have new content every single day. Now back to the video. The biggest question that you might be asking right now: how does the MSI GT77 perform on games? For Red Dead Redemption 2, it can manage a respectable 63 FPS average when running at 1080p Ultra settings without DLSS. It sounds little, but it's honestly not bad. Fortnite with 1080p epic settings manages to pull out 100 FPS on average. Again, that's with DLSS turned off and with the settings cranked all the way up. Finally, we have GTA 5 running at a healthy 130 FPS with 1080p max settings. Now these are the base frame rates. If you want, you can turn on DLSS in supported games and you can get up to double frame rates with this laptop. So yeah, not too shabby at all despite the RAM issue. Other than that, if you're looking to play online games, this laptop also has the latest Wi-Fi 6E and a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, which I really don't like the placement of, but I'll talk more about that later in the ports. As for the screen, it has a huge 17.3 4K panel with a 16:9 aspect ratio. Yes, they haven't jumped on the 16:10 bandwagon yet, since this still uses the same chassis from the previous generation. Anyway, that screen has a 144 refresh rate, although I wish it could push up to 240 Hz. But on a brighter note, it has a mini LED panel that can be pretty bright, up to 1000 nits of peak brightness. Pretty good, especially if you're running HDR on your games. But unfortunately, I have to go back to the disadvantages since this doesn't have G-Sync, which, for the price, is not good. It does have adaptive sync though, so I don't think you won't encounter screen tearing that much. But come on, why doesn't it have G-Sync when other screens on laptops much cheaper than this have G-Sync? It's like an unspoken standard for anything priced with 4 digits. As for the ports, the left side has the power input, 2 USB-A ports, an SD card slot, and a 3.5mm audio combo jack. The right side has a third USB-A port and 2 Type-C ports with Thunderbolt 4 functionality of course, and you'll also get a mini DisplayPort, HDMI 2.1 and 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Now, if you recall earlier, I really didn't like the Ethernet port placement, but I also didn't like the placement for the display output port since it can get in the way if you're a right-handed gamer. If you play with your mouse on the left side, you'll still get potential interference from the power port. Honestly, if you really care about the great port placement, I recommend checking out some Lenovo Legion gaming laptops that have the important ports at the rear. But as a bonus, one of the Type-C ports on the right side can be used to charge the laptop with up to 100 watts. Now this can come in useful if you're ever on the go for light workload, since the 330-watt charger that this laptop came with is just a behemoth. Speaking of behemoth, yes, the laptop is a behemoth, and for its size, it has a decent build quality. But this is almost completely made out of plastic, so manage your expectations because this still has some flex to it. Once you open up that lid, you will find a nice surprise. This laptop has a mechanical keyboard. It uses MX ultra low profile switches. Yes, it feels great. It's a tactile switch, so what could go wrong? Well, for those who are unfamiliar or new to mechanical keyboards, you gotta know that this is pretty much louder than any normal laptop keyboard you've ever used. While it's all good, these are pretty complicated compared to normal Cherry MX switches. So if things go wrong, which they don't often do, it can be pretty complicated to fix as well. And for those who used MacBooks before, these switches look fairly familiar to the dreaded butterfly switches. These Cherry switches should be more durable though, since it's mostly stainless steel, but it still gives me chills. Now the keys have individual RGB lighting, and you can pretty much customize the lighting down to each key. But wait, that's not all. This laptop also has an RGB logo and a light bar at the rear cooler. Speaking of coolers, this laptop has a pretty beefy cooling setup as you might expect from a high-end gaming machine. It has 4 fans and a ton of heat pipes over the CPU and GPU, so you can expect this thing to run relatively cool. But of course, expect a ton of fan noise. There's just no getting around it. Now with all the power this thing has, how does the battery perform? First off, this has a pretty huge 99.9 watt-hour battery, and with light workloads, you can get up to 4 hours of use. But with gaming and other resource-intensive programs, you can get as low as 1 hour and 40 minutes. Still pretty good. But come on, how often do you play games while on the go with a laptop this huge and heavy? So, should you get the MSI Titan GT77? Well, it's pretty respectable in itself, and its huge storage options, great display, and powerful internals are something that I think video editors, animators, and 3D designers would love to have. So, in that case, I would highly recommend this. But if you're looking for a gaming laptop for this price, I suggest the Asus Scar 18. That laptop has the same chipset but spits out a bit more frames than the GT77. This is because the Scar 18 automatically overclocks the GPU, so it could push it harder. For gaming, you could use this especially if you're looking forward to playing games with HDR, but it's not a solid recommendation for me. What do you think? Have you experienced one of these laptops before? You may freely share your thoughts and recommendations down below. But if you're interested in the GT77, go ahead and scan this QR code. Your laptop is waiting for you in Amazon right now. The link to it is also in the description box below. If you want more of our content, always feel free to subscribe. We have new ones coming out every single day. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next video.